In the shadow of the pontificate that's just ended with the death of Pope Francis, a man of profound moral authority and global reach, uh, I think that there is. I think people would discuss the controversies raised during his pontificate, and particularly the the issue of the most consequential crisis in Europe since the Second World War, Europe's uh, the threat to Europe from Russia, Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. But the Pope's response, part prophetic, part perplexing, has stirred both admiration and alienation. And the Vatican has long styled itself as a neutral character in war situations. Its diplomacy, a blend of spiritual universality and calculated pragmatism. Since the Lateran Treaty of 1929, the Holy See has officially abstained from naming aggressors unless both parties invited mediation. And Francis, the first pope from the global south, inherited this posture but also expanded it. His preference for moral nuance over moral clarity mystified a lot of observers who wanted clear statements of, black and white. What is it? What is right? What is wrong? And that's really for people who are commenting on the news. That's not really for popes. The point is, popes have to be aware that there may be Catholics or Christians on one side in one army and in the other. There may be people who look to the Pope for guidance on both sides. And unlike Western leaders, he didn't immediately denounce Vladimir Putin. I did. He offered prayers, lamented suffering, and avoided the accusatory language of conventional politics. To some, this was principled neutrality. To many Ukrainians, it was unconscionable reticence. Francis' vision is underpinned by a theological maxim, be in the world but not of it, and his refusal to take sides was not an abdication of responsibility but a deliberate assertion of spiritual universality. He wanted to be the chaplain of he wanted to be the chaplain of the world, not of NATO, nor an emissary of Kiev, but the voice of the crucified, the displaced, the orphaned, the bombed. And his criticism of war is absolute. He speaks of brothers killing brothers, of a future devastated by blood, and of the barbarity of modern conflict. Yet even this very even-handedness, his metaphysical equidistance, has drawn ire. His controversial comment urging Ukraine to have the courage of the white flag was interpreted as a call for surrender, and the Vatican later clarified he meant both sides should pursue negotiations. But the damage was done, particularly in a country where existential struggle does not permit theological abstraction. And it's important to recognize that in Ukraine there is a Catholic Church, which there isn't really in Russia. Pope Francis' views are shaped not by theology, but also by history. As an Argentine, he comes from a context deeply skeptical of US influence. He lived through the Dirty War, through CIA-backed juntas and military violence masquerading as order. He sees in global conflict the fingerprints of arms merchants and imperial pride, not merely the villains of one side. And in applying this lens to Ukraine, Francis has been accused of false equivalence. His reference to imperialisms in conflict blurred the moral line between aggressor and victim, and in a conflict where war crimes are abundant and well documented, such neutrality, though intellectually ambitious, risks sounding like moral evasion. His occasional romanticism of Mother Russia has not helped, referring to Russia's imperial past, Peter the Great, Catherine II, as a proud cultural heritage, deeply offended Ukrainians. To recall such figures while Kiev burns under Russian artillery was to many a rhetorical betrayal. Despite this, though, Francis wielded moral authority behind the scenes. The Vatican played quiet roles in prisoner exchanges and the return of abducted Ukrainian children. It maintained lines of communication with both sides, even when most embassies chose partisanship. It warned against nuclear escalation. He called Mariupol a cemetery. He begged for an end to the siege, for food corridors, and for peace. And when he created a Ukrainian-born cardinal, he was urged to think about the children who had been stolen. Yet his greatest domestic gamble, his overtures to Patriarch Kirill of the Russian Orthodox Church, largely failed. The hoped-for ecumenical alliance collapsed when Kirill became Putin's spiritual apologist, and Francis, unwilling to sever that channel, refrained from naming names. In the end, Francis didn't say the word aggression. He did call out the war as barbaric, and he never named the man behind it, but he did call for peace with his last sermon. Peace in Gaza, peace in Ukraine. History would debate whether this was an act of transcendent neutrality or a grave misjudgment, but perhaps the final paradox of Francis' papacy lies in this. He sought peace so sincerely, he was willing to alienate the very victims who needed him to speak with clarity. And there's also the extraordinary story of him giving money to buy drones because somebody asked him. It's again the extraordinary balancing act between the pronouncements and the kindness in reality. I hope his successor will find the wisdom to navigate the same path with a heart equally large and a vision no less prophetic, and a sense of kindness which permeates the reality that goes perhaps beyond what is actually said. I think I was talking earlier about St. Clement of Alexandria, and I think it's really important to recognize that no matter how evil Putin and his cronies, Kirill and co, may be, they are destined for salvation, as is the whole of humanity, according to St. Clement of Alexandria. And I was taught by a man called Bishop Callistos of Dioclea, and he was very much influenced by this idea of universal salvation. And it would be remiss of me to ignore that. So although I think Putin has been a very bad boy, there is redemption and there is hope. And Pope Francis was looking precisely towards that, I think. And Pope Francis and Bishop Callistos, no doubt, shared the same reverence for Clement of Alexandria and the same belief that all humanity, all the world, is straining in one final urge towards sanctity and a final urge towards achieving its destiny. Its destiny is to be good. It's what God says when he creates in the story in Genesis. It was good, and it needs to be returned to that good, and that means everything within it, including Putin.